Hi you guys, it's Laurel, and today we're going to be learning about a story called David Was Anointed. I bet you guys have heard of David. I bet you guys have heard of David and Goliath. And so this is the same David that we're talking about. And last week we talked about Saul, and Saul was technically the first king of Israel. But guess who's next? David. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. This story is from 1 Samuel 16 through 17. So while I'm reading the story, I want you guys to think about this question inside your heads. Okay, ready? How is Jesus the perfect king? When you think about it inside your heads, say it one more time. How is Jesus the perfect king? So Jesus wasn't born until a long time after David was. But all of the Old Testament, which is the Bible before Jesus was born, points towards Jesus. So it's really important when we're reading kind of the older stories of the Bible that we think about Jesus and how each story connects to Jesus. Alright, you guys, let's get on to the story. Alright, David was anointed. Saul was the king of Israel, but he disobeyed God. So God chose a new king for Israel, a better king. God sent Samuel to Bethlehem to visit a man named Jesse. One of Jesse's sons would be Israel's next king. Jesse had 8 sons. Jesse's oldest son was tall and handsome. When Samuel saw him, he thought, "This must be the one God chose to be king." But God told Samuel, "He is not the one. Do not pay attention to what he looks like. You look at what you can see on the outside, but I see the heart." One by one, Jesse's sons approached Samuel, but God had not chosen them either. "Do you have any other sons?" Samuel asked. "Yes," Jesse said. "My youngest son, David, is in the field taking care of the sheep." Jesse sent for David. When David arrived, God told Samuel, "He's the one." Samuel anointed David. So, anointed means that he poured oil on David's head to show God had chosen him to be the king. The Spirit of the Lord was with David, and Samuel went back home. When the Philistines gathered an army to fight Israel, King Saul got his army ready too. The Philistines had a great warrior named Goliath. Goliath shouted at the Israelites, "Send me your best man, and we'll fight one-on-one." But none of the Israelites wanted to fight Goliath. They were afraid of him. He was big and scary. One day, Jesse told David to take food to the battlefield. David's brothers were in Israel's army. David saw Goliath, how the Israelites were very afraid. David turned to King Saul and said, "I'll fight him." David had fought off lions and bears. But more importantly, he trusted God to keep him safe. Saul offered his armor to David, but it was too heavy. Instead, David chose 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream and met Goliath armed only with the stones and a slingshot. Goliath made fun of David because he was a young boy, but David said, "You come to fight me with a spear and sword, but I come to fight in the name of God. God always wins his battles." David ran toward Goliath. He slung a rock and hit Goliath in the forehead. Goliath fell face down, and David killed him. The Israelites won the battle, and the Philistines ran away. Alright, so another big thing that we need to talk about is the question I asked at the very beginning. And so just to remind you, the big question was, how is Jesus the perfect king? So we talked about one king in the story named David. We also talked about another king a little bit named Saul. And Saul was a bad king. David was one of the best kings in the history of the world. He was a really good king. But he's nowhere near as perfect as Jesus. So I asked you to think about it before. So think about it a little bit more again. How is Jesus the perfect king? Alright, so Jesus is the perfect king because he perfectly rules over the universe as the King of Kings. Kings, people in charge of us, they are not going to be in charge forever. And they're only in charge of a little tiny amount of people, or countries. But Jesus is the king of the universe. He's the king of everybody, from Adam and Eve to the very last people when the world ends. He's the king of the universe besides Earth. He's the king of everything. And so he is not only the king, he's a perfect king. He never does anything wrong. He never makes mistakes. David makes mistakes. Saul makes mistakes. But Jesus never will. So, just like David, you can trust in the King of Kings because he is perfect, and he loves you. Alright, you guys, so that's the story of David. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys have a good Sunday or whenever you're watching this. Bye, you guys.